awkwardly, and things are spilling out. And I feel like also in this type of environment and this type of game here, the same runs keep happening where the same players are over and over open over and over. And they're running that 3-5-2. So like defensively, I'm going to guess some of those players are struggling with that just watching it.
Well, I mean, defensively, they were getting destroyed in this game. And I think, and gloves off, guys, I think that had the rain delay not happened, this game would have been 5-0. And nothing against Campbell with all her saves, but they couldn't get out of their own half, much less their 18 for like the first 45. And then the rain delay happened, and it changed the game.
Yeah. No, this is probably one that Kansas City looks back where they're frustrated that they didn't come away with 3 points. But I feel like we see the same thing where it's people on the backside are wide open. And I understand in the play, especially that one there, like you don't have eyes in the back of your head and you can't just immediately text someone, hey, like watch out for this. Like it's tough in the moment. But when you've got throw-ins, you've got goal kicks, you've got these moments in between plays and the same players are losing their marks. Like that for me, when we talk about national team starter, like that's kind of the difference for me when you're a bit more of a game manager and you're able to work with the pieces you have and you're able to help someone who's struggling a bit.
And you don't need at this level, you don't need to look. If you know that person keeps getting the ball on the far post, then you automatically, not even taking your eye off the service or the cross, or saying, hey, Jen, make sure, mark up weak side, mark up back post. You don't even have to look. Just automatically make the call because you already know your teammate's not doing it and struggling. And just it's that automatic reminder. Like you don't have to turn and look.
Yeah. It's coming. Yeah. And they're not robots, right? You can't control them, but I think having that connection there and working with players who maybe they've just woken up on the wrong side of the bed, whatever the reason is, like they're struggling. You have to work with them. Like that's your teammate for the game. So for this game, for me, like it was a bit polarizing because XG wise, I don't know where she was at. I know she was in the positive as far as like making saves and doing a good job. But I think there were certain things when I'm using the lens of like number one national team starter of like, okay, how do you work with this sort of stuff? Like nice breakaway save here. We work with her teammates, help her out a bit on that. But communication wise, handling stuff, are we making more problems than we need to? Or are we just kind of setting up for, hey, I'm ready to make a big dive? Like, that's a fantastic save there.
But did it need to happen? Because none of your defenders are you taught? And that's the question. Like, why is she getting that open shot from the top of the D with two defenders standing to her left and her right, but nobody pressing her? Is that lack of communication on your end as a goalkeeper? Now, it's quite possible because, I called this game for Bally Sport local. No, not this game. No, I watched this game. Sorry. I didn't call this game. But you can't necessarily hear, right? So as an analyst, I can't hear if she's like, step, if she's talking to her defense and stuff. So it's possible she was, but why? Where's the defense here? And what is she saying? To me, I agree with you. Are you just post up saying, okay, shoot, when the direction should be, step to the ball, like whoever's closest, whoever you're pinpointing and making that communication.
Yeah.
And she could call me right now and be like, I was screaming at her and everything. And so there's obviously a disconnect, and that's fine. And I will tell you, I think Campbell's coming back into her form that she ended last year with. She is a shot stopper, a pure shot stopper. She loves it and she does it well. The question is, when you see a goalkeeper getting so much action, and it goes back to what you said. So you kind of get in that rhythm, right? You're in the rhythm. And it's like playing small-sided. And you're just like in that zone and you're making saves because you're constantly involved, and 12 saves and it's here and it's here and it's there. But it's when things slow down that, and you said you're not doing anything for 30 minutes. Are you going to come up with that save in the 90th minute? And when you play for the U.S. national team, because that's what we're talking about, that's more often than not, right? So you're not getting, you used to not be getting bombarded. So can you maintain your composure and that elite play and pull it out when it needs to happen?
Yeah. No, and again, that's different from club to national team. I understand that. Just for a point of reference, Campbell has 40 saves in the season, and second place is Prue at 26. So she's almost doubling second place.
And look, you have to look at it like it is a good thing because she's playing. She's getting played in. And let's say hypothetically Naeher, because we're talking about national team, let's say hypothetically Naeher, like Chicago's just blind, defense is blinding everybody. Nair's making like maybe 2 saves a game and stuff like that. When you get to camp, when you get to, is she involved? Is she played in? Is she everything? Look, you want your defense to do well, but at the same time, if you want to show as a goalkeeper, you would need some balls to get through.
Yeah. There's definitely no around there. And I think, I mean, she won goalkeeper of the year last year. And I think that she's, I don't know if she's a clear number one for me, but I think if I'm going to say, hey, this person's playing the best in the league, like I'm probably picking her. It's either her or Sheridan at this point for me, but I don't think anyone's just broke at this point.
No, I don't. And I don't know if you have another clip, but I think Murphy's struggling.
Yeah.
So, and you can, and look, she's a friend of mine, but I think Murphy's struggling. I think that you can say, well, look at North Carolina, and she has a couple shutouts and this and that and the other. But I think for me, from a perspective against like watching the Angel City game and her being grossly out of position on Claire Emsley's chip, but watching mistakes that are repetitive. And that's what I'm talking about, where you're saying, you were sitting in the number 2 spot, but you keep making the same mistakes playing pro. I look at positionally, if you keep getting caught out of position on things, that to me is a bigger problem than what France did, or what France did and stuff like that is something more consistent to me.
Yeah, the France play is one of those you're like, I don't know if I've ever seen a play like that. I've seen parts of the play before, but yeah, like if it's one off with the wet field, like you can kind of pass it a bit, but when it's like repetitive stuff, that's where you start to have cause for concern because it's going to happen again. So right,
and there's some other things in her game that I think I'm watching teams catch on to her distance off the line on free starts, on free kicks from outside. And it's so high that you're getting players now that are shooting, and you're going to run up against some players that are going to hit that ball. And she doesn't have the speed, although she has the height and stuff. In my opinion, if you get somebody that can really, like you get an Henri that knocks a ball, that can hit a ball like 100 miles an hour, you're not going to get back. And so those are kind of positionally things that are a little suspect to me with Casey's game right now. So that's why I'm like, that pool is kind of open to me.
Yeah. And I guess kind of like closing topic here for me, when we fast forward to the Olympics, I mean, how optimistic are you that whoever gets that nod, which I think, I'd be surprised if it's not Naeher at this point.
It'll probably be Naeher.
But whoever it ends up being, are you optimistic that they'll have a good tournament, or do you feel like it'll be like the Gold Cup where it was like, well, high moments, but then also like we're kind of shooting ourselves in the foot at times?
I think at that point you're halfway through the NWSL season. Some of the kinks have been worked out. I think it will be Naeher just because, and the reason I say this is because nobody has separated themselves. Like nobody has become that full package for the US that says, you know what, I'm doing my distribution, my communication, my organization, like my shot stopping, my crosses. I have everything hitting on all cylinders right now. And there is nothing in my game. So I am clear cut, like becoming the number 1. You don't have that right now. Everybody's got a hitch in their step. So I think that, yes, you go with Naeher, especially if Hayes starts bringing in the younger players and the new players, because now you do need that stability and that leader and that experience, which goes back to what I was talking about in the beginning. You need that experience in the back to calm everything down. And we all know what a great leader often on the field she is. And she does calm the team down. And I think you're going to need that if you're going to make some major adjustments to the team coming into the Olympics. But I think with that being said, I don't know. I think it could be a solid tournament with a few hiccups. How about that?
Yeah. Well, and it just kind of depends what the hiccups are. Like, welcome to Gloves Off. This is week 2 for us, Saskia. We're back at it, so I'm excited to get back into it. I'm Bill Reno. We're covering the women's game here with 1999 World Cup winner Saskia Weber, and I'm excited to kind of dive in. There's a number of things. I'm broadening the scope today to kind of get more, so I'm looking to cover a few things. But can you remind me what games you covered over this last week? I think you had.
I did the Angel City the Angel City game against Houston with Paige Nielsen scoring it at the death. And on her return, I don't know if everybody knows about that listening, but on her return, she just got traded from Angel City a week ago to Houston. 2 weeks ago, and on her return to the stadium, and she's a beloved player by the fans here at Angel City, and with no time left on the clock, on the corner, 0-0, and she scores off a corner kick. I mean, it was like a Hollywood ending for her that you couldn't write any better, but it broke Angel City's heart, I will tell you that.
Oh, that's funny. I vaguely or loosely reminds me of whenever I'm a big Texas Rangers fan, A-Rod came back to play Alex Rodriguez, and you would think, he did like a number of years for us, played well for us, but like the fan base was not happy anytime they saw him back. So it's always like when players come back and like a former team they played for, the fans are like still supporting, but it seems like it's kind of either or, like they'll either support you or the boost going quickly. So.
Well, I think that they looked at it like, they didn't want to lose Paige, and there were signs in the stadium for her, like supporting her and everything like that. I think some fans are like, you can't do that,
Yeah.
But that's how it ended. So that's the game I covered this weekend. And honestly, goalkeeping wise, it was nothing to talk about. It was probably Jane Campbell's least active game, and she's been getting shelled.
Yeah.
And same with Harchich. The game was played all in the middle of the field. Harchich came up with a really good breakaway save off Alozia in the second half. Came out just actually. She let Alozia she kept her depth, and kind of like sometimes we talk about that. We see goalkeepers, they just, it's a breakaway, I got to go. And I think Harchich kind of read that her defense was gaining on Alozia, so she kept her depth, but she kept her shape. And Alozia kind of was, I think, hoping that she would bite, and she didn't. And so she had no place to play. She played she played it right into her, like into her block. So it was a nice save. But it was well thought out. Like it wasn't like, for us as goalkeepers, we're like, all right, that was well played. Like that was thoughtful. She's like, I'm going to hold. I'm not going to come. My defense is catching up. She's running out of ideas. And, she won the duel. Yeah,
no, I think it's funny that 1v1s have kind of turned into this like rock, paper, scissors battle that that kind of turned into like, so penalty kicks, like everyone knows now if the shooter is like looking at a corner, like it's just fool's gold, like don't fall for it. And I feel like these 1v1s is like now we're starting to see some complexity to it, which is
it's a chess match.
Yeah. Like, but you'll see times where people just overthink it, like, well, they think I'm going to do this, so I need to do, and it's like, no,
yeah,
like, work for you. So,
no, she handled it well. But other than that,
well, and I'm sure Campbell's thrilled to have like a quiet game as well. So it probably works out for both keepers there.
Yeah, to get a clean sheet. Yeah, I'm sure.
Well, before we hop into, I thought this was pretty relevant news, and I haven't seen. You may have info I haven't picked up on yet because I didn't check right before we hopped on. But I think it's probably worth mentioning. Alyssa Naeher not finishing the last game. She got replaced by Mackenzie Wood. I think I forget the minute mark, but it was some of the second half. I was trying to go find the clip where something happened, but it seems like it was one of those kind of innocuous plays. It might have been off a goal kick. It might have been one where she was sliding for kind of a free ball. She played clearly in pain for a bit. And last I saw, there hasn't been any news. They're all kind of waiting to see. I'm sure they're doing a 100 test over there. But it certainly puts a bit of a mix into the goalkeeper situation, which was already kind of up in the air to begin with.
Yeah, and I haven't seen the play either. I spent a horrendous travel day trying to get back from Florida, where we were calling the game at a studio. But I haven't seen it, and the first thing that came to my mind was like, how serious is it? And we're 2 months before the Olympics, and I think things were in there. I think we had decided, like, look, if Naeher's clean and healthy, she'll be the starter. But if she's not, now you have to take that serious dive into who is truly your starter.
Yeah.
And we're up in the air on that. We think Jane Campbell should get a look for sure. Casey Murphy, like I said, I don't think is playing at the top of her game right now. I think I'm concerned about her positioning on some plays and her pace, in a sense, like her lack of explosiveness. So I'm kind of, it's interesting. We have a little interesting situation going on here.
Yeah. Well, it's one of those, is like, at what percent do you play at, or can you play out where you can still keep your starting spot when you've been the number one for so long? If you're at 98%, you're at 85%, you're 60%, at some point, like, the threshold gets crossed.
Yeah. But you have to say to yourself, are the keepers is one keeper so much better than the other that we would play her at 60 or 70% over a healthy keeper? And if that is the case, then you have a problem. Like, in my opinion, like, your keeper should be so close that it doesn't matter who's starting. And if that's not the situation, then you have to find keepers that are that close, that if somebody goes down, there is no hiccup in this. And I wouldn't play a keeper if my keepers were set up properly. Then the keeper that's at 100% would get the nod.
Yeah. Well, and I don't think it's a competitive tournament or game if you can play your goalkeeper at 60% or 80%. Mm-hmm. Like, what are you really playing at? So,
and you have to remember the other team knows. So the other team knows that they have their scouting reports, they have everything. Naeher's not at 100%. Bombard her.
Yeah.
If it's, I don't even know what it was, if it's a knee or a leg, move her, get her going laterally, get her out of her comfort zone, because she's not 100%. Her explosiveness won't be there. Her range probably won't be as much. Like, in a tournament like the World Cup or like the Olympics, you play who's at 100%.
Yeah. I felt, and I couldn't really tell where the injury happened, but it definitely felt like at the first part of the second half, just moving for her was difficult. Now that's like right after it happened, so who knows what the Olympics are going to look like. But I think you're absolutely right. And if I'm on the other team and I'm seeing the goalkeepers moving a little odd, like, it's kind of blood in the water. Like, you're
absolutely. So. And it surprises me when teams don't do that. Like, when you see like a goalkeeper take a break, like have to have the physios come on or whatever, and there's a knock. Why aren't you just going after her then? Test her. And teams don't seem to flip on with that. Like, I've seen it game in and game out in the NWSL, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I just bombard the keeper right now and test her.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Well, I'm going to slide over to a couple games from the past. We had a few, like, kind of almost like 2 weekends of games from the midweek and the weekend. But Caitlin Rowland is one that kind of caught my eye. She's played her third game of the season, played in mid-April. Prue comes in for Bay FC and takes a spot there. And then now Caitlin Rowland seems to have won the spot back, at least for the time being. And I think for her, the thing that's really standing out about her game is she's playing a pretty tactically high level, but it's kind of sloppy at the moment. I think that's in some sense to be expected. That some rust is kind of shaking off. I mean, she's been largely on the bench for the past 5-6 years with Kansas City, with North Carolina.
Exactly.
So she's in a tough spot, but I really enjoy watching her play. And I'm not sure kind of what's caught your eye, but as far as like what I'm seeing from Rowland, and we'll roll some clips here, but she's really front-footed. Like, she's trying to take responsibility. That opening clip is a great example. This is all from the last game against Orlando. But she's on the front-footed. She's not the fastest goalkeeper, but she's coming forward. She's challenging stuff. She's trying to play a complex game, which is, I think, really applaudable, but is obviously difficult. It'd be much easier to just sit back. So I'm not sure what's caught your eye, but as far as like front-footed goalkeepers, I'm a little surprised to be hearing myself saying like Roland's one of the more front-footed. But I've really enjoyed watching it so far. It's been good.
Well, I think that gloves off. I wasn't impressed with Peru. I think that, and we had talked about this actually on Inside the 18, that I felt that although, that first game of the season, when her first game of the season, yeah, she got player of the match. She had, I think, 6 saves, but I felt that the majority of those saves were of her own creation. Like they weren't good positioning. They were kind of like creating a mess out of situations and then coming up with the save. And so I was like, I'm not like kind of bought in here. I think that with Roland, I think she's trying to establish herself as, this is my area. I'm going to try to keep things as clean as possible. Like, I like that she's front-footed, coming off her line. Like, you're not going to play. If you play in behind my D, I'm going to be here. I'm going to be on it. It's a great save. I'm going to be here. I'm going to be on it. I'm going to be strong and big. And they need some stability, because what they did was Didasco didn't start this game. And which I was really surprised at, because Capri Didasco is hands down one of the best attacking outside backs in the league. She's a leader on the field. She was one of their first picks, not in the expansion draft. They pulled her, from Houston. And, you've lost a leader in the back. So now you're putting a Roland in who, has plenty of years in this league, like has the experience, can be a leader. And I think she's just did a great job this game to just establish her range and her zone.
Yeah, I love Roland's after. I'm just seeing this now, to be honest, but I love her after play facials of just and that's a great one too, of just simultaneously annoyed but relieved at the same time. But no, I don't know. I'm not sure what you thought was kind of limiting Prue's game, or if things were just kind of stacked against her at times. But I think for me, it felt like, and again, gloves off, but it felt like she unfortunately is a product of a goalkeeper trying to play big when they're a little bit undersized. And when you're undersized,
right,
you got to move your feet. So you can't just get set and go with power every time. So I'm not sure what you saw with Prue, but when I see Roland's game, I'm the hands are good. She's not the quickest, right, but she's moving around, but she's thinking about how she needs to move. She's playing with inside her skill set, where I felt like Prue is just, at times, it's all energy, and she's just kind of feeling her
right.
body.
She was relying on her athleticism. And what when you get to you can do that up to a certain point, but when you get to this level, everything else has to come into play. Your positioning, your timing, your organization, and everything, and not just relying on your athleticism, the energy, your explosiveness. Because if you're not, she was making things more difficult. I don't think her positioning was great. So yes, she made a great save, but did you have to make that save if your positioning was proper? And so what you see here with Roland is, I feel like her positioning is more secure. It's better. I like her, she has depth when she needs it. She's off her line when she needs it. She's, trying to keep everything clean, no rebounds. That's what you want. And I think when you get an athletic, energetic goalkeeper, a lot of times that energy translates into rebounds, into tips over the bar that shouldn't have been tips over the bar, or now corner kicks. And I think that that's what I saw in Prue's game.
Yeah. Well, and it is kind of odd to me, and this will be a bit of a transition into the next piece here, but it is kind of odd to me to see Roland, who's been a backup for I think 2018 was the last time she was a starter, but it's been a while. And now she's coming in, and for the best league in the world, how odd is it that you have a backup coming in? And that's not to say every backup can do it. I understand that. But I think we have this odd setup where the depth is almost like a question mark, how good are the backups? How good are the starters? And we see a shift like this, and it's the goalkeeping position hasn't lost a step here. It's still playing at a good level, if not improved. Whereas I think you see, any other top league in any other sport,
there's take a drop
off for a bench player that rarely happens.
Well, and I think it doesn't happen all the time, mostly because you're just not playing your backup keepers. And we've talked about that a lot, where, you have keepers that they're sitting and sitting and sitting, and, training isn't enough. You have to get into situations. You have to get into the game, which is why we've seen keepers leave the NWSL and go to Europe. And start for teams, and it's not the best league, but they're getting games in and then come back. And like, so like a Roland, she sat behind Murphy forever, and now she's getting her go and she's making the most of it. And so, and I thought, to be honest with you, I thought coming into the season, she would have been their starter from the get-go anyway.
Yeah. How many keepers in the league would you take over like an 80% Naeher at this point? I mean, what? Just give me a ballpark. Would you say it's still kind of a few, or you feel like you'd open that up?
Like over? Are you there?
Yeah, I'm still here, sir.
Sorry, no, I lost you.
Oh, you're good.
Hold on. I don't know. That's a really good question. Honestly, it's kind of like I'd have to think about that. I wouldn't not take Naeher, I think, because, well, it's 2 months. So we don't know the extent of the injury. And if she can get to 100% by then, or even close to 100%, then she's on your roster. I think right now, you look at a Campbell, obviously a Murphy, because you need some experience there right now. But I think that's a teeter. Some people will say a French. I don't know. It's a good question. I have to really think about that.
Well, and I think that if I'm guessing ahead, I mean, anything can happen, but if I'm guessing ahead, I think that's going to be the scenario where, and even if it's told that she's 100%, I think with this being so close to it, like when you're not finishing games for whatever reason, like it's just going to cause speculation. So obviously we wish for the best for Naeher's return and recovery, but I think the Olympics come, and if it doesn't go swimmingly, like this is going to get talked about. And certainly, I mean, we're going to bring it up. I know for certain. So, but I do want to transition over to the non-American goalkeepers in the league. And I think last weekend with Kaylin Sheridan and Berger coming in with Gotham, we've got a rare situation where we have two goalkeepers who are not American playing, which is I don't think it's the first time, certainly, but one of the few times. So I'll roll a few clips here, but I think when we talk about the sophistication and responsibility in the game with Roland here, I think we start to see it a bit more with these two as well. I think probably distribution-wise is probably my main critique for Berger, but for both of them, like they're trying to do more than just sit back on the line and be a shot stopper. So although I love to see Americans playing, like, even that little play there, like if her just kind of batting the ball down and like waiting to like play out, like you just don't see that very often from a lot of goalkeepers. They're just getting the ball and rolling. Like she's intentionally pinning that down, and then now she's going. Like that sophistication has been really exciting. And so for me, if that's what it's going to take to lose a spot for an American keeper, okay, that's a good level. I mean, that's good dealing with a kind of a dirty ball there. But it's got to be like these top level goalkeepers that are coming in if they're taking spots for my money.
Yeah, and I've been impressed with Berger. Like from the get go, when she got the start, you're kind of like you wanted. Well, there's a Sheridan.
So this game, this has both Sheridan and Berger, so you'll see them both back to back.
So I've been impressed with her. I thought she came in and didn't kind of miss a step in a sense, like transferring over to NWSL. I like her timing. You see it right there. I like she has a presence in the back. She comes out for crosses really well, and she doesn't seem rattled. Like there wasn't any like kind of like, oh, she's getting the start. This is a new league, big stadiums, the best league in the world, like faster play. That takes a bit to get used to. And she didn't seem to miss a step on it. And I was impressed. I was like, okay, now I understand why they brought her in. She's like a calming person back there. And again, I agree with you. If you're going to lose a spot, if an American keeper is going to lose a spot, that's the level of goalkeeping that they lose a spot to.
Yeah. And she's coming from Chelsea, as many know. And I'll be honest, I get really annoyed as probably the best word when I hear Brits say, oh, we have the best this, we have the best that. I just feel like they're constantly claiming that, like, oh, we have the best this. And certainly goalkeeping is something that they're always saying, oh, we have the best goalkeeper, we have the best goalkeepers in our league, or this and that. So well,
they can't claim Berger because she's German.
Well, and I was odd. I was like, that isn't even your goalkeeper. And so
yeah, it's like it's one thing if it's Earps or something like that, but it's not. It's Berger and she's German. And yes, she was playing in England, but that doesn't mean you have the best homegrown goalkeepers.
Well, I think, I mean, to be fair, the narrative kind of transitioned to Earps maybe a year and a half ago, but there was a time where like, oh, hey, Berger's like the goalkeeper. And, you know, I feel like when you put a certain badge on, whether it's Barcelona, Chelsea, whatever, like people just naturally assume, oh, like, yeah, you've got to be one of the best. So I was a little suspect on her coming in because my thought is like, yeah, like, sure. But we all know, like in every other league in the world, there's these bottom feeder teams that like the top teams are beating 4-0, 5-0, 6-0 in every league except for the NWSL. Like that's kind of a rare thing for us. So I was a little suspect, but no, I think
she came in and arguing, like she came in and one of the top goalkeepers in the league. And she's showing that. I mean, that save off McCaskill's, that save off the free kick, like, and again, you come into a new league. First of all, you have to learn a new system. You have to catch up with the speed because, like, pace for pace, it's the fastest soccer being played, across, and that's why it's it's the best league in the world, and it is. And I agreed because it's top to bottom. Because your last place team, Utah, could turn around and they beat Carolina this year, and so every game, some games are blowouts, but not really. And so you have, in most leagues, those bottom teams there's such a difference. But here, as far as goalkeeping goes, she walked in and made a statement for me, which I think's pretty impressive. And like nothing shocked her. She came in, she's like, this is my game. This is how I play. And of course, Sheridan, again, one of the best goalkeepers in the world, hands down. And she's in my opinion, Sheridan's the full package. Like she owns her space. She, her organization, her communication, her timing, her positioning, crosses. And then of course, Sheridan's one of the best distribution wise. So
even just that last play here, this time's up well. You talk about full package, like part of being having the full package is like having a plan B. It's like this play doesn't go her way, right? She realizes, oh, I'm gonna step off this. What does she do? Like she figures out, okay, hey, how do I solve it? Say, I don't know.
No, besides fouling, but she pushes wide. She's like, okay, I'm off. I'm getting beat right now, but I can become a defender in a sense and just push her out wide. So there's absolutely no angle, and it gives my defense a time to recover. That's another level where you see other goalkeepers will come to the league. They'll miss that, and they'll just say, "Oh God, I missed it," and let the person dribble on, in a sense. But I've been impressed. I've been impressed with Berger. I really have.
Well, and they feel much older than a lot of our goalkeepers in the league. I feel like there's just so much energy with a lot of our goalkeepers out there. Just like, I'm going to go solve it by outworking you. Which, look, you got to work hard. I get it, but there's just a lot of thought gone behind it. I'll say just on the last note here for her, these plays like drive me up a wall. Like for me, this is a red card. Like I hate this. I don't know if we can. I don't know if I can swear at that, but I hate this sort of stuff because like that's like season-ending stuff right there. Like
it is, and I know it's a free ball, but in my opinion, nobody's going for the ball there. Only Berger is, and so what do you have? You have just two players, one of them's their own player, but just running into your goalkeeper who's called keeper, who's coming out. She has the right of way. And if you did this to a person going for a header, it would absolutely be a card. Like if somebody was coming up to do a clear ahead and you have San Diego running into the goal, there's a card there. Like you're not going for the ball here. And even if you are, you have to go for the ball in a safe way. You're just taking the keeper out.
Well, I'm not a big fan, and I don't know if now is the time to get into the minutia of like goalkeeping methodology, but I'm really not a big fan of like driving that knee up simply from like a safety factor. Because like if that player, I can't see who runs into her, but if she's on the ground and Berger has that knee up, like it's a good chance that knee's going to the temple, and like that's incredibly unsafe. So like I hate seeing that sort of stuff, and I think I know I've seen times where goalkeepers have been given reds for a high knee or a high cleat on this sort of situation when it was extreme. So like on one hand, the goalkeeper, I don't want them using their body as a weapon, but on the other hand, like she's exposed, right? So what is she supposed to do?
You can, and I agree with you. Well, I agree. You do have to protect yourself in some ways, but at the same time, if you put that into the context of a field player, two people going for a head ball, and that field player put their knee up into another field player running on, it'd be a red card, right? And so the goalkeeper, in a sense, is going up. I've never been a fan of the knee up thing. I think it's very old school, you know. And you know, you can break it down into stepping into getting your momentum up, but the knee doesn't still need to be up in the air, like, you know.
Yeah. It's almost. I mean, people talk about it being like a shield for you, but like the reality is it's more of a weapon, you know. And like you'll see when keepers go up and bring that knee up, like people will pull out of that, and in some sense, it does protect you by scaring them off. I understand that, but I don't know. Yeah, these plays are just kind of like double-edged sword of like, well, someone's going to get hurt because people are out of control. Right. And honestly, if Berger doesn't call for it, for me, like, it's irrelevant. She's got to the ball first. You don't get to just run into the 18 blind and hope you get it. Like, that's not, you know,
correct.
Like three people collapse on this play from the collision.
Yeah.
So anyways, but I could go on and on. That's one more bigger soapboxes, but so transitioning to a bit of a larger scope here. And we just mentioned how Berger was coming over from England, but I wanted to take a look at one of a young goalkeeper from Man City. So one of their last game, I think it was their last league game for Man City. Which Man City's more than likely going to win the league. I think if they lose out and Chelsea wins out, you know, you could see a swap there. But Man City's in the driver's seat. They've won like 15 games in a row at some point, or something ridiculous. Like they've done well this season. But they did drop a 2-1 result to Arsenal, and I thought it was fascinating to see Kiera Keating, who's a 19-year-old, starting for the top team in England. Whereas I think for our keepers, what are they doing at 19? And so of course, I've checked Keating for a little bit, and so I know a little bit about our game. But going back into it, watching it, I'm not impressed. But it is interesting to see the resources and the stage she's on. So you think of our 19-year-olds, what are they doing? What track are they on? And I think you watch Keating here, and I'm not going to say this is like that impressive, the number of things she's doing. Again, 2-1 loss here. But I think for me, what England's doing right here is like there's a longer track here of like, okay, what responsibility can we give our keepers? How fast can we push them up? Where can they get going? Whereas for our system, like it's very tough if you're just relying on the NWSL to get there, because you're going to sit, you might get drafted, like there's so little chances and so little room for error. But here, like this is really fascinating. So I'm not sure on your thoughts of like 19-year-olds in different countries versus like the US, but it is awesome to see, but I'm also kind of jealous at the same time to see this, because I know there are a ton of American keepers that can play at this level.
Well, it's a double-edged sword, right? Because you're sitting here saying, we need, like, you want goalkeepers to have experience. And, do I think you'll see a 19-year-old goalkeeper starting in the NWSL anytime soon? No, I don't. I am kind of the old school that keepers do get better with age. And yes, you lose a step with age, but you gain such a perspective and understanding of the game. And so the mistakes that you're seeing Keating make are from being immature. Right? It's coming out, not putting a clean block on it, and then just getting back with depth and trying to make up for the mistake and like bad distribution. I think that those come from youth. Why aren't you pushing your team up in this situation? Why do you have a defender standing right in front of you with the ball bouncing around at the top of the 18? That comes from experience. Get out of my 6, get out of the box. Understanding that you have to clear your defense first. Why aren't people marking up? Is she 19 and not understanding that this is a chess game and you have to move your chess pieces? And so that comes from experience and age. Now, the argument there is, well, how do we get experience? All right. We get experience by playing. So in 5 years, she could be one of the best goalkeepers in the world, because at 19 years old, she's playing in front of 40,000 people, for Man City. And so do you roll the dice and say, we're going to develop her and we're going to throw her into the mix? I don't think that is the philosophy here. I think that you have enough goalkeepers that have so much experience that it would be hard for a 19-year-old to unseat them. And it would be hard when every single game is so competitive, it would be hard to justify developing a player in the run of a season.
Yeah.
Like that right there. It's not a good save to me. That, her coming out and open palm, smacking the ball down right to the top of the penalty spot. Like that comes from immaturity instead of continuing that ball on the way. First of all, why did she go with one hand? She went with two hands. She would have held it. But that comes from immaturity. And they're lucky they didn't get punished on it. So there's your thing. I wouldn't start a 19-year-old. But again, I don't like who what's their depth roster here? Who is she starting over?
Yeah. I have to look at their depth chart, but I know England has had a lot of young goalkeepers that they have been leading into, which has been really, I mean, Earps is like the only goalkeeper that's over like 25 that's been in the national team picture. There's a lot of these younger keepers with like Hampton, McIver.
But they haven't. So, but see, then there's the thing. They have an Earps. So do we say we're not going to fill it with a 30-year-old, a 28-year-old and stuff like that? We have an Earps. So we're going to start developing the next generation. And so that's the argument with the U.S. team here. Are you going to keep putting goalkeepers in there that are the same age or older? Or are you going to say, look, we're going to have a Naeher. We're going to have, whether it's a Campbell or, a Murphy, but then our next goalkeeper is going to be 19 or is going to be 20. And we're going to start developing that goalkeeper. They might not play, but they're going on the trips. They're in the training. They're in the atmosphere. They're going to the Olympics, what have you. Although I'm not sure if they'll take 3 to the Olympics. They might. But and I believe you do. I believe that other spot, that third spot, should be that developmental keeper. And yes, we have the youth teams and everything like that, but I don't think you load up your keeper position with your eldest players. Now, then the argument goes to you put the best. If you've earned it, you've earned it. And that's true too. But you do have to develop these keepers on a big stage at some point. So with the NWSL, is your backup keeper, do you have 2 30-year-olds and your third string that does travel is like 28, 29. Like, where do you go from there?
Yeah.
Because look at on the field, what do you have? Look at all these young players on the field, that are coming in 16, 17, 18. And the reason you can do that is obviously because you can give them 15 minutes in a game and you could start developing them slowly. You can't do that much with a goalkeeper. You're not going to sub the goalkeepers. We all know that. So, but I still think on your roster, and a lot of the NWSL teams do that in their training. They'll have, like Niku trains with Angel City, and you have like 16, 17-year-olds that train with New York and stuff. So that's good. That is that development. And they are starting to look at that and say, well, this will be our next round or next generation. We wouldn't start that player. I think obviously, Man City said, well, let's start the 19-year-old. But I think you're seeing the mistakes and Arsenal should have done much better on those mistakes. Bottom line.
Well, and I think like it's interesting with like the investment and the growth in these leagues, because I think you're absolutely right. In some sense, it's like, man, you see those mistakes in the NWSL, like there's not a lot of patience. I mean, I'll be honest, like I think Anderson getting pulled from starting spot, I understand it, but I don't think it was like, wow, she like threw 4 goals in the back of the net. It was like, no, it's like not a great game, but like that's the margin of error is like in this league, whereas in England, most other leagues, like you're going to have that.
Well, and I think uniquely with Angel City, I think that knowing that you have a Haracic and an Anderson, and I think the margin of was very slim. Yeah. But I think coming into the beginning of the season, you're at the bottom of the table. There were mistakes, whether Angelina, is almost ready or not ready. Didi will be. I think that first game was really shaky for Didi, but I think she's settled in. The goal the other day was totally defensive stupidity. Like gloves off. I mean, everybody stood around and watched. It was like, what is everybody doing? It's literally the last kick of the game. Like throw everything at that ball and get it out of the box. And everybody just watched the ball roll to the penalty spot. And, Nielsen put it away. And whether Haracic in another day could have come up with a save, it went through like 4 people. She was screened and, but I think that, that's unique to know that you have, and I think we're seeing that with more teams. So like Chicago now, Nair's out. Are we going to see a drop off in level, or will it stay the same?
Yeah. Well, and I think, this I love the margins of error here because it pushes the ceiling high. And the next time you call a game, watch how often you talk about bad defenses. Watch how often the goalkeeper's life is more difficult because the defenders drop into space and they don't put pressure. They don't step to something like they think, oh, I need to go play goalkeeper too, and they like start gravitating for it. Drives me up a wall.
And again, so we're watching those clips from Man City, and I'm like, why is your defender in front of you? Yeah. Like, why has she dropped deep? And that comes with. And that I don't agree with. Like that is your job. Your job is to clear people out of there. That was hammered into me by Tony Chico and everything. Get these people out of your area. This is your area. Own it. And I think you saw Roland doing that. So you don't see people dropping in on her. She's established the saves she's making. She's established her range. And now let me play in this. Don't drop in on me. Don't do it because I don't need you. Go play, put pressure on the ball. And another level of goalkeeping is telling your defense to do that, but also your defense's job is to make the shot that's going to come off so predictable and such a small window of angle that it's an easy save for you. And that's your job to help manipulate your defense to force that shot. And if you're not doing it, you're just getting blown into the back of the net. It's on you, but it's also on your defense. And I think you saw that with Houston, with Jane Campbell. I mean, everybody's talking about Jane Campbell making 12 saves and, she's got 40-something saves on the most in the league. I'm like, what does that say? It's not a good thing. I'm like, great for Jane Campbell, horrible defense.
Yeah.
What does that say?
It's a team effort to defend the goal, not like, oh, it's just the goalkeepers or we need multiple goalkeepers in the play. It's like, no. Like field players, go do your thing. Goalkeeper, do their thing, and that'll work. But I don't know. I think when I zoom out a bit and I see all this kind of from like a higher point of, okay, this league's doing this and this league's doing this and this national team. On one hand, I like how England is really pushing these young goalkeepers, and I watch Keating, and the reality is like there are colleges where I would start the current starting goalkeeper over Keating at that school. Now not everyone, but for me, it's like, okay, I know we have, in my opinion, better 19, 20, 21, 22-year-old goalkeepers that I would play over Keating. So I like that they're putting some investment. I like that we've got some depth, but also I think like the disconnect for me is seeing, okay, it seems like there's a bit of a pathway in England and with some other countries, not all of them.
And we don't have the pathway.
Yeah, and it's very kind of like, well, whoever shows up. The fact that we don't really know who Naeher's replacement is right now is like, that's
well, I think we're going to start seeing more of a pathway here with the start of the USL Super League.
Yeah.
And just seeing Marley Canales get drafted today by Spokane and stuff. And like Marley was a great player in the NWSL, and and so, she went to UCLA, and just that for goalkeepers in itself, you're not playing, you're sitting on the bench in the NWSL. We don't know who's really going to play next for Naeher. And if it's going to be the quality that Chicago needs. And so, but with the USL Super League, those goalkeepers that are sitting third or sitting on the bench, now they have another decision to make. Now they're like, hey, I can go start and I can get these games in, and it's all fall, all winter into the spring. And, and now we are developing. And I think what you will see in the USL is younger goalkeepers. I think you will see that because that's the pool to pick from. And I think you'll see goalkeepers fresh out of college that'll be starting. Where here, when you get drafted, you're not starting.
Well, I don't disagree with like the minutes and opportunities. Here's the thing that throws me for a loop is I know for a fact NWSL coaches have a hard time putting value on performances in Europe because it is the massive spectrum it is. You can play in one league and that league can have a huge spectrum of like talent, or you can play also in Europe, but it's a cow pasture, right? Like for a coach to really know, okay, well, second division here or first division here, what does that mean? But then add in the layer of just being aware, who is playing where, who do we know of this person?
Right.
I know,
like you got Fallon, over at Man U.
Yeah, great example. Yeah.
And look, Fallon's a great goalkeeper, and she can develop into a great goalkeeper. She's not getting the as much minutes at Man U, And I know she loves it. Love having her on Inside the 18. Love everything she does with her like marine biology and everything. So shout out to Fallon. But don't lose sight of her. Like, and I agree with you, but then the argument there is, Bill, but then you have a Berger come over who's playing for Chelsea, and she's just, like, in my opinion, established herself as one of the top goalkeepers in the league from her first 2 games.
Yeah. Yeah. No, and I think whereas the men's game, it's much more, okay, this league's here, this league's a little better, this league's a little better. You're getting this huge, like, well, like the top half of this league is better than this.
And you're getting like your top 4 teams in the French league are good. The rest are shite, right? Yeah. Same in England, same in Spain, Sweden. And so, and so it's like, but not the NWSL.
So when a player goes to the Super League, like, what is that going to get valued at? And time will tell, but I'm a bit pessimistic, just knowing how difficult it has been for keepers to do well in Europe and get a chance in the NWSL. Because I know a number of times they go do well, they play Champions League games, they have good performances, but then they come over here and they're like, oh, I didn't even know you were okay, whatever. It's basically like a summer league, right? Like the coaches struggle to understand that. Just because they're so hyper fixed on their league, which I get to some extent. So
well, now with the influx of European coaches we have in the NWSL, like they do know, like the quality of their leagues, whether it's in Spain or like Becky knows the quality of the league in England and stuff. So I think maybe with the different coaches, you'll see like a bit of a switch with that. Obviously New York wanted Berger and pulled her in.
Yeah. Well, and I think it's getting better, certainly, because there's just times where in the past it's been, just total night and day sort of like disconnect. So I'll give them that. And I think with the league just becoming more European and more international as time has gone on, like there are a lot of positives of that. But we'll see what the Super League ends up being. I don't know what the shelf life will end up being, but
I know it's a tough one because look, as good as the NWSL is and as deep as the NWSL is, we know any given day any team can be any team. It's great quality. It's not easy. The talent pool isn't that deep in the United States to start a whole nother league. But if you do it right and you build it, I mean, like I said, most of the players that I'm watching getting drafted by these USL Super League teams, they're all NWSL players. So, they played at the NWSL level. So if they're just they're bringing it over to there, then the players will be there and the depth will be there. It's going to be interesting. I mean, look, more power to everybody. Play.
Well, I say give them a year, and then year 2, like let's have like the American Cup, where like you just pair the 2 leagues against each other. Like give them a year to get their feet. Okay, that's fine. But then like let's move off that. Like let's have some competition. Let's play each other. Like
I always felt that. I felt from the beginning that they should be combined in some way, whether it's Division 1 and Division 2. I think the thing, and you're never going to find in American soccer, is relegation. It's not going to happen. The investment is too important to the private investors that like millions, hundreds of millions of dollars being put in, and then your team being dropped to a second division is not, I think in the women's game that won't work here because investors will be like, well, I didn't buy into this team to be in the second division. So no, I don't think relegation is the system here. Do I think it's the right system? I think it's great. I think it's really exciting. I love watching it in Europe and everything like that. Adds a fire under your belly because you don't want to be dropped. And there's a lot of financial repercussions if you go up or if you drop down.
Yeah.
So, but I do think it'd be nice to combine the 2 leagues somehow, you know?
I'll sidestep my soapbox on promotion now, but
no, why?
No, the problem is I can go for an hour on that. I'll say this is my one thing on it, since you're provoking me here. Why does
that's the point.
why do the limited owners, who admittedly have invested, why do they get to box out other owners? Because, and I think Wrexham's a great example, right? You have American investors who want to get in on the men's side. What do they do? It's like, well, it's tough. Like, there's not really an option. So what do they do? They go overseas. And I agree that the current owners, like, I mean, I would understand, like, I don't want to lose my investment like that. but how many other potential owners? It's like we're protecting these small few for the rest of the country, and the fact that there's already a second league popping up, there's investors that want to get in, and for whatever reason couldn't get into the NWSL,
and so they're going to the Super League.
Yeah, so for me, it's like why isn't the NWSL having a system to bring in more people? And expansion is part of that, I know, but if overnight you could have a dozen or so teams pop up, like how much more can
and that's true. And I don't know if I'm not on the business side of it, and I don't know if a lot of that, I know we've gotten off goalkeeping, but I don't know if a lot of that has to do with the amount of money you have to put in to be a team in the league, and that's just not feasible. Like with I'm sure the difference is huge, whether it's $50 million to start an NWSL franchise and it's $2 million to start a USL franchise. That's a big difference for investors, and what that entails, like, what you have to bring to the table in order to be an NWSL franchise. And we're seeing that ceiling get higher and higher because of Angel City, because of Bay, Utah, and what they're providing, and Kansas City building a women's soccer stadium, And if the USL Super League teams, that's not the level of financing they have, then, you don't want that drop off. You don't want a Kansas City, you don't want a Yankees against, I don't know, pick a really poor baseball team. You know what I mean? Because then you have that disparity. You don't want that. You don't want the people that have all the money buying all the great players, and you're never going to get from the bottom because of that.
Yeah.
So there's a lot that goes into that, I'm sure.
No, for sure. And to be fair, there's a lot of different, across the country, or across the world, there's not just one promotion relegation type, in the same way that there's not just one kind of fixed, like you can have different structures, you can have playoffs, you can have.
Well, that's just something else I was going to get into, because the Europeans think we're crazy that we do playoffs, but that's the American style. Because, and I agree with, like, when you talk MLS and stuff, especially the European players, like, what is this? It doesn't matter how you play all season, like points or whatever. Like, you get into the playoffs and you could be horrible all season, but now you've made the bottom tier of the playoffs and you could win the whole thing. And they don't understand that. They're like, no, it should be points and you should win the Shield, and that should be the end of it. And I'm like, yeah, but Americans don't work that way. Americans like to watch tournaments, and they like to watch playoffs, and they like to still hope their team has a chance. And that's for television, and that's for the sport. That's how they even changed college in the playoffs and got rid of bowl games for football. Yeah. So it's like,
yeah, those knockout games are a real addiction. I'll say there's something to it. Yeah, no, it's fair. That's so fair. Well, at the end of the day, like, for me, it's like, and I think this is like a big separator from the women's game to the men's game. Like the women's game, very inclusive environment when you think from like how things are run from an org, how things are like the fan experience, like how things are presented of the athletes. Like, it's much more holistic, and there's much more, hey, let's get people in. Whereas the men's side, it's a machine. It's like, it's so commercially driven.
I mean, you have Giroud coming to.
Yeah, and I get it, but for me, it's like, hey, man, like how can we get as many people in? I think that's where my mind goes with promotion relegations. Like, whatever, and there's a million ways you can go about it, but how do we get people in? How do we get people for this? The fact that we have 2 Division I leagues fighting, like, it's going to be fun for a little bit, but after time, like, one of those leagues is going to fail, and I'm going to guess it's the newer one, So
yeah. Well, I mean, the men try to do it too, so I think. Yeah. But I think back to goalkeeping, if we go back to the youth and stuff like that, like, I would love to be in that training. I would love to be in the meeting with Man City and hear like what they're saying to Keating. Like, what are their, like, is it like, okay, you did better this game, but you have to understand that you can't just knock this ball down. That ball has to be parried around the post. It's got to be parried wide, and that comes with more reps and more reps and more reps. Or if they're like, hey, you did great, like, because she's not doing great in my opinion. But if you're willing to roll the dice, and I guess in my thing, like, if she plays like that, then no, I don't. Like, Man City might win out. They might win the Shield. But, like, if I was the other team, I'd be like, oh my God, follow up everything and go after her. because like she's, her defense is dropping in on her. She's not organizing. She's not communicating. She gives up rebounds. She's youth. She's not comfortable on her restarts or on like distribution. Go after her.
Yeah. Well, and I think it's tough to say who our top 19-year-old is because it's such a big disconnect from like in product to 19. Like there's so many tiers there. But for me, it's like, am I trading my top 19-year-old for Keating? Like, no, I'm not.
No.
And that's not to take anything away from Keating's game. I mean, she's obviously like.
No, but I agree with you. I would say if she was in the college system, like if she was, if she was at UCLA, would she start over Aniku? No, whose game's more refined and stuff. Or what's her name who just transferred from Stanford?
Like Campbell.
Yeah, it's Campbell. And so no, Niku's not at UCLA anymore. She's transferring, but she wouldn't. She'd absolutely no. She would sit behind Campbell. And so, but that is the evolution of goal for goalkeepers here in the United States. Like it behooves you to go to college and play. And even if it's for like 2 years or 3 years or whatever, like, I don't think coming out of high school and going right to pros, we haven't seen it happen with a goalkeeper yet. I think we could see it happen probably in the next 4 years. Do I think it's the right move? I'd have to see the goalkeeper. To me, would have to be absolutely something we haven't seen, like something special.
Yeah, Emmy Allen leaving North Carolina early. Like even that was kind of an eyebrow raiser. Where she's 21, I think, and so like 21. She's got a few years under her belt already, but I think she still had 1, if not 2 years eligibility left. Even that one is rare to see.
Yeah, it was rare. I mean, I think you're playing with UNC, so I know. Obviously, we all know the training that you're seeing it day in and day out with Anson, and you're also playing with one of the top teams in the country and the systems, and playing in the top league in the country, which is the ACC. So you're seeing the Florida States, you're seeing them, so you're seeing a lot of competition of the players that are in the NWSL now. So. But 21 is young still. And
Yeah, no, absolutely. Well, we'll call it there. I think that we've covered just about every topic with goalkeeping now, but
I know.
It's good. Well, I think it just, I think it really, the fact that it was kind of a winding discussion today, I think kind of really speaks to not only where the position is globally, but really where the position is within the U.S. We talked about the 2 leagues, where the college system fits in with that, the depth chart, the styles of play. I mean, there's just a lot to kind of dive into it. So no, it's good, Saskia. I'll same time next week. We'll do it again.
Absolutely. Hey, and guys, you can always check us out at the Union Goalkeeping app on your Apple or your Google Play. You can get it. Check us out. We have Inside the 18 always, and honestly, listen to us on Believe Network. So
yeah,
and you can reach out to me on the Union Goalkeeping app. I'm just at Saskia, so DM me.
Yeah, at Bill Reno for me. So that was good, Saskia. All right, well, hey, next week you'll hear from us again as we cover the league and the globe, as well as everything goalkeeping. So
let's do it.
All right,
bye guys.
All right.